So welcome back, everyone, to the Raised Hunting Podcast. Today we have a very cool topic. Thank you to Instagram handle Truman, who
I think his Instagram handle is actually longer than that. We were assuming his name was Truman.
He's actually an Instagram handle, not a person.
That's the only way that's what he told me. So that's what I'm repeating.
Thanks,
so there
Zuckerberg.
You go. So anyhow,
it was Truman.
It was Truman. Truman, thank you, because I think you've brought up a very good topic that we're going to be talking about today. And so joining me again today is my two special guests. And Easton loves it when I call him a special guest because he's here every week, but still he's a special guest. But anyhow,
why are you singling me out for that?
Because you're the one that gets mad. Warren gets mad about other stuff. Like if you talk too long, then he gets really angry.
That's fair.
So
I think everybody gets mad at that.
Well, I think you do the same thing, and we don't cut you off. So
I'm not.
Okay, but we had a couple people that turned in the reviews that you were going to mention.
Yes. Casey J. GA44 left us a 5-star on Apple because he's the man, or she. I'm guessing it's a he. Nick Knott left one. Then the Spotify dudes are just, they keep slamming it on. We obviously don't know their names, but they keep laying on the podcast. So you are on the reviews. So you guys rock. Apple dudes are trying to catch up, though.
We'll see. I don't know if you're going to catch them or not. All right, so today's topic, though, is what Truman asked was, can you guys go over some of your former shots and talk about shot placement on them? And so we kind of hem-hawed around on this on as far as which direction to go, but what we've each done is come up with two opportunities or two shots that we've taken, and we're going to discuss each one of those, two each. So we'll try to get through all of them. So
our goal should be to have to work in fluently him-han into our sentences for the rest of this podcast.
Why are we doing that?
Because you just said we him-hawed around it a little bit and then came up with this.
Okay. Can you spell him-hawed?
Can you?
Yes. Hymhawwed.
There's not two W's.
Yes, there is. In my him-hawed there is.
Well, then in my him-haw, I can spell it how I want.
Okay, whatever. You're off topic, and we don't have time. So here we go.
I was the alternate in spelling bee in 5th grade, so.
And he has no idea. He can't even say debacle right.
He was in 5th grade, and he was the alternate in the kindergarten spelling bee.
Oh, don't even act like I didn't know my reading and stuff.
Oh, you did.
I read Harry Potter books. I got to ride in a limo to Dairy Queen.
Your word is debacle or debacle. Choose the correct pronunciation and spell it.
It should be tobacco.
No.
It just goes better. It just makes more sense.
So we just proved that that's why he's the alternate.
Doesn't mean I don't know the difference.
So what we're going to talk about is a couple different. Who's going to pick the first shot that we're going to talk about? It doesn't matter who.
I think we should do juice.
Do juice.
Yep.
Shot 1 or shot 2?
Well, let's do both, but shot 2 I think is more important.
Okay. So we're going to bring up he's the largest deer that I've ever killed. But the reason that I think that we're choosing this, one of the items of this shot is if you see the video, I shoot the deer basically mid-body, halfway down. I mean, it was pretty much center.
You're on shot 2.
Shot 2. Unless you want me to do shot 1 first.
Well, it would make more sense to do 1 before 2.
I did. Okay, so shot 1.
Well, we were talking about good shots, so that's why.
Yeah, but I can cover shot 1 pretty quickly.
All right, let's hear it.
So a week prior to me killing Juice comes in 12. First time he came by was at 6 yards, but he's chasing a doe. I don't get a shot. He goes by. I know he's there, but I don't know how long it's going to take for him to come back out of the brush pile that he went into. Doesn't take him 20 minutes. Here he comes back out. Elevated heart rate. Juice did that to me no matter what. The fact that he was not 180 but 179 and 7/8 thanks to Warren.
It's just your fault for encouraging him to go be an official scorer. Blame him.
Well, regardless, the buck is a big buck. But I'd had so many huge deer, and I'd had so many encounters with him that he would get under my skin for sure.
Yeah, he was probably the only deer I've seen, animal period, that he messed you up.
Yeah,
like you made rookie mistakes when that deer was around. When was the other one? Because that one day at the South Stand, we should have killed that deer. We should have killed him, you and I.
Bushy beard.
He hit bushy beard good though.
Yeah, I mean that one wasn't. A dog carried him off.
He flustered you.
But a dog carried him off.
Okay.
You know.
Anyways.
So Juice comes in and he walks in, and I had already ranged the exact tree that he's going to come out on this side of. So he's exactly 30 yards. I know how far he is. I come to full draw as he's walking.
Hand me that, Nick.
Oh, you're gonna
Keep
pull.
going.
Okay, as he's walking in front of the tree, I stop him. He stops at exactly 30 yards, but he doesn't know why he stopped because he didn't hear me that well following the doe. And so basically, I shoot a little different than everyone else as far as I don't bring my pin down on something, I come up. I've always done that, and that's just the way I shoot. So my 20-yard pin got to where I wanted, and I was just about to get the 30 to where I needed it to be, and he started to take a step, and I panicked and pulled the trigger. That's something you shouldn't do, but I did it. And so the 30-yard, so the arrow went exactly where the bow was designed to go. The shot was where the pin was is where the arrow went, but the arrow was low. And so the arrow, we got a diagram here, and this is the same way he was facing. I would say, well, I think it was a little farther forward, like right there, like right there.
Really? I did not know it was that low.
Yeah, it was that low because Warren and I, we got out of the tree, walked over, tried to figure everything out as far as
You and Caden did.
Well, me and Caden did, but then me and you went back because I knew. So here's the whole story. He runs across the ditch, stands there for about 15 minutes, not doing anything.
So
but
30 yards broadside?
30 yards broadside.
Okay.
And I hit him low, knew I hit him low, but he went across the ditch and then didn't do anything. He didn't follow the doe. He didn't. Another buck came and he postured at him and stuff like that, then acted like he was going to run him off and then turned and walked away. And I probably saw him for 30 minutes after the shot, and I was like, that deer is not going to die.
Yeah.
There was no, he didn't act like he was hurt, nothing, didn't lay down, didn't do anything.
Just confused or what?
He didn't even, I just don't think he knew.
If he wasn't chasing his doe anymore and he stopped and stood there for so long and then gave up on
he
fighting, he definitely had something wrong.
He didn't give up on fighting. When the other buck showed up, he postured at him. The other buck didn't mess with him.
Oh.
And so then he walked away. And then
But why was he standing? He had a doe, and why was he standing there for so long?
Because I don't think he knew what was going on. I think the doe ran off when I shot. I didn't pay attention where she went. I was focused on him.
Was she in heat?
I would say the way he was chasing her, I mean, he was right on her tail everywhere he went.
So for those of you guys that are listening, we have a deer diagram up here too. And so we did end up looking for Juice for, I can't remember if we looked for a day or 2 days. But we went through his core area. We went through everything. We only had, I think, 2 drops of blood. But the reason that we did do that is, one, just because that ethically that we're obligated to do that. 2, when we were looking at the video, and this is where we're in a different position than most people that we usually have video to go back and look at, Dad and I felt as though the arrow entered the cavity.
Right.
We thought that the broadhead did get inside of the body cavity. Yeah, which typically we would tell you in that event, if you get into the body cavity like that at all, they're going to die. It may take days. But they're going to die. And so then we were hoping that wasn't the case, and that it just with the angle from him being downhill and you being in the tree stand, that it was actually lower than we thought, and the fletchings just were kicked up, which I think you got a picture, 24 hours later or something like that? 36
hours, almost 2 days.
Okay.
So we didn't go after him right away. We waited several hours before you and I went over and then started to look for blood. Didn't find any blood. There wasn't even there was a few drops going, a few yards. And then where I had seen him stand for 30 minutes, he wasn't there. There was no blood there. And so that's when I was like, I just really don't think this deer's dead. But like Warren said, you have to go look. So the next day we combed the area. We also knew Juice pretty well, and we knew that he was a homebody, meaning he wasn't a deer that just wandered in. So he was going to be either on me or on our neighbors, dead. If I had truly gotten lucky and killed him, then he would be dead on one of us. So we called the neighbor, told him. Then we went in and started looking, found no sign of him, anything like that. So then I basically said, I'm punched my tag until I know differently. I'm not hunting anything else. And so I started checking trail cameras each day, but he showed up. He didn't show up that night. It was the second night. He was already back on the trail camera following a doe.
We found the arrow too.
Found the arrow.
And there was a little bit of fat on it, but nothing of substantial. Didn't stink. I don't
There's a
believe
little
it
bit
did.
of blood on it.
There was a tiny bit of blood, but I think it was also on one side, right? So that's something that I think you should keep in mind is if you have an arrow that you've shot an animal and you think you hit it low, and you only have blood or anything on one side of the arrow, typically, from our experience, I would say that you are low and you did not kill an animal because it's only the arrow entered only one side of flesh. The other side wasn't on anything. So that's something to keep in mind. If you only got blood on one side of the arrow, odds are, in my opinion, are not very high that you're going to find that deer.
But here's, so not in my defense, but it's why I shoot where I shoot. I shoot low like that because either I'm going to kill them or they're alive. I hate high shots where you're up and high in the shoulder and then you run into that, well, I don't know if I caught the lung or if I didn't and, just clipped it and he could live for a while. When you hit them low like that, either you're going to kill them, they're going to die fairly quickly, or they live. And in this case, he lived, and it was only a few days. It was only, like I said, I don't even think it was 48 hours before I got another picture of him, which said, he's alive, go hunting again. So I started hunting him again. And when he came in, the day that he came in, you could see the hole. You could see that I had just cut down his side and it had come out the bottom. It never did actually penetrate into the cavity. But the only reason we got to know that is after I killed him.
Yep.
So do we want to go on and talk about shot 2?
Sure.
So shot 2, and I know you guys can't, that are listening to the podcast, the deer when I shot him the first time was facing from me from rear end to the left to the right. He's exact opposite when he comes in the second time. When he comes in the second time, this time he's at like 22 yards. I mean, a little bit closer. He came in really, really fast, chasing a doe. And so I'm trying to stop him, and he doesn't stop in the opening that I want him to. And he makes it into a couple limbs that are blocking directly behind his shoulder. And so I come to full draw, and I'm now at the time, I honestly probably feel like this time I didn't have a chance for him to rattle me. It was too quick. And so I didn't panic, and I could think about my shot. And I was like, I know I'm going to have to shoot him a little back here, but I believe that I can, if I don't catch the back of the back of the lungs, I'm going to catch the liver.
I think you thought he was quartered away a little too.
I did. I felt like he was kind of angled away from me a little bit, and so that was going to be okay.
Yep.
And so I released an arrow this time, and this time the arrow went exactly where I was aiming. And the moment it hit him, I didn't see it, but Warren did. Warren was filming, and Warren could see blood just spurt out.
Like tons of blood.
Right.
Yes.
And so he runs. We can see him, 80 yards, 100 yards maybe, go through the timber.
Yep.
But then we lose him. And so Warren was pretty confident that deer's dead right now. And I've had so many issues here now in the last few days. I don't want to push this thing. So we decided to leave him for 4 or 5 hours.
Yep.
Just to be on the safe side. So we backed out, didn't go look for an arrow, didn't do anything. We left and went to the house and watched the footage. And then I felt a lot better because then I could see the blood myself that came out. And we both felt like, and you can see, I guess if you had the point where I was aiming at was like right in here, right on this edge of this line.
I think you hit him like right
there. Yep. I mean, somewhere like that right there.
So describe for people, how far back from the shoulder were you?
Probably 10, 12 inches.
Yep.
And
I would
probably agree. 10 inches up from his belly.
Yep.
And 10 inches, I mean, honestly, you're pretty much center mass. If you put crosshairs on the deer, the center of the deer.
Do you have any idea what the average, maybe not average, or just like what a typical width of a liver would be?
I don't know exactly.
Well, like even a range. Like, would you think more than 3 inches, no more than 2 inches?
I would say it'd be 3 to 4 inches at the narrowest part at the top, and then probably 4 to 5 inches at the bottom, because it's kind of a teardrop shaped.
That's already more than I was anticipating. Like I almost imagine it like a little sliver at the top, and then as it gets bigger towards the end, it's like at the biggest parts, like 2 or 3 inches.
I don't think so. I think they're pretty.
They're pretty
large. When you see one, when you cut it open,
it's a little more probable than just the width of an arrow, basically.
Oh yeah. There's more than that. But it's a lethal shot. I guess I want to make sure that people understand.
You weren't shooting for the liver.
I wasn't aiming. I didn't pull pull back and say I need to shoot the liver. I was hoping that I'd catch the back of the lungs, but I knew I had a little more room with the liver being there. I've had enough experience to know, but there's two shots, like aiming at the liver would be like aiming front on. It's a lethal shot, man. When you hit them right square front on, both an elk, a deer, and it's lethal, but there's so much room for error. And so it's not a shot that the average or new beginner type hunter should be trying.
Well, any shot I ever take, I'm trying to take the most opportunity for, I guess, failure. So like broadside, I'm going to aim lower, because if I do hit exactly where it is and everything, then if it drops, I still have room for error, type of thing. And so it sounds like you had enough experience in that to be able to say, okay, I'm going to aim for the back of his lungs. And if I don't hit the back of his lungs, I'm still good, because there's still liver right there. I mean, that's
think
my thought process.
I think we should talk about the recovery of it, though, because so now we told everybody what the hit was.
Yep.
Okay. And books, people, lots of people
will
tell you. Yep. And I have my own theory on this after seeing it a couple times now.
Why'd you say books?
Like the Hunter Ed book will tell you that a liver
like
hit.
6 hours, ain't it, or 4 hours?
No, I think they'll tell you 12 hours plus
For the liver?
for the liver. And so this is what I would say to that. So anyways, should we tell them what happened with the deer first? I think we will. So anyways, is what happened is there was a fresh layer of snow on the ground, maybe an inch, a half inch.
Yeah,
but
half inch.
as you guys know, snow on the ground, even a half inch, if it's covering the ground, it is easy to see blood.
Yep.
And so Dad and I gave him probably, since we shot him in the morning, we made ourselves go get lunch and stuff, and we probably gave him 6 hours, something like that.
At least 5.
Dad was a nervous wreck. I was super confident. I was like, we're going to walk over there and pick and juice up. But I'm telling you, the amount of blood I saw come out of that deer, he's dead, or he's been dead for 5.5 hours.
You said mid-body, too?
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, not mid-body, because that makes me think left and right, but I'm talking height.
Yeah,
like
it was
about
almost dead. I'd say 10 inches above, 10 inches below.
So is what happened is we go back to where Dad hit him, and for the first probably 40, 50 yards, it's exactly what I saw, which was it literally looked like somebody filled up a bucket, like an Antler King bucket with blood, and was just pouring it out. And
like your
and
10 that you shot.
It was probably the most, like, top 3 most blood I've ever seen from the shot.
Especially if you have snow on the ground, it's going to look like even more, too.
Well, here's the thing. So it only went for 50 yards, 60 yards. And then we had a little bit of a blood trail and then drops at about 80 yards. Okay, like the blood ran out, and we're on snow. So we should be able to see it.
Read his tracks.
And we kind of did that. But anyways, it completely ran out. Well, we'd had Dan on him as well. And so Dan keeps going. We go over one little ravine, and there he is. And he made it 30 yards from the last place we had blood. You just couldn't see him because he was down this little dip. So, and then he was stiff as a board.
And how long did he go from, like, where you guys said that it stopped bleeding significantly to, like, just drops?
30 yards.
Oh, so from where it started to be drops to where he died is 30 yards.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was.
So basically, he did run out of blood.
He died.
That's my theory. So
you could tell he died on his feet. Like, he ran and died.
That deer died within a minute, without a doubt.
Yeah,
he was only 120 yards from where Dad shot him. And so this is my theory to that, which we had several people tell us that we need to be giving him 10, 12 hours. I think the liver is, I think if you clip the liver, then I would agree. You need to be giving him 10, 12 plus hours. If you center punch the liver, and I'm not saying that you see some blood squirt out, like you have what appears to be gallons of blood, and you hit him in the center of the liver or the bottom center, then is what I believe happened with Juice is just like the water shoot at camp, right? These kids shoot these Ziploc bags full of water. Whichever one hits it lower and it runs the water out, they usually win. Well, your liver holds all the blood for the body, and it's like kind of like a Ziploc bag almost. And so I think what happens is if you put, especially an expandable or something, through the center of that or through the bottom of it, you literally deplete that animal of all the blood. I think that what happened with Juice, with it being snow like that, all of the blood had already ran out before he made it past 80 yards.
So to say the goal here is that if you're not obviously intending on shooting them there, we're not saying that, but how are you going to explain to somebody to pay attention well enough if you don't have a camera or something, to be able to know, okay, I clipped it or I smoked the liver.
That's a great question, and I think it'd be very simple.
And
I
I'm
go over
going off of like just go off of not having very good conditions either to be able to see that amount of blood, but to know pretty confidently.
One is the arrow. If you can recover the arrow, that's going to tell you a bunch because it's going to be
And
covered
what color
in blood.
it should
It's
be.
a dark red.
Yeah, don't go off that completely though. 'Cause
No.
you could still have a lot of blood on that arrow and it not be what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I think is what I would tell them is that you need to go to where that arrow is, and you should be able to see blood for 40 yards. Like, and I, as you guys know, I'm color deficient, and I do not see blood well.
Yeah.
At all. And you should be able to stand there, and you should be able to see large amounts of blood for at least 40 yards. And if that's the case, then I'd tell you, go get your deer. It's dead right now. If you have consistent blood, but it's not like where you could see it for 40 yards, but it's just very consistent,
following it, yep.
I would tell you need to back out.
Wait.
Because your liver's never going to start. You're going to consistently get blood. It's not going to run out, which is going to be good. But at the same time, it may take him a lot longer to die.
Yep.
And it also doesn't pump.
Now
it's not like a heart or a lung shot where it can be sprayed. It's just steady blood.
It's literally dumping out. That's
dumping
why
out.
if you hit it in the bottom, it's going to come out. So there's going to be so much more.
Correct.
Now, can a deer live with a liver shot?
I don't believe
shot
they
him
can.
In the top of the very tip top of the liver. Can they live with that?
No.
What are we qualifying as a liver shot? Meaning that it nicked the.
There is at least a hole in the liver and it went through.
They'll die.
They'll die.
So they can't live no matter what.
Nope.
Okay.
And it's
just a matter of
But
time.
we should enter the other part of that, and that is if you gut shoot a deer, you've killed that deer.
Yeah.
He's going to die. I don't know. Can't guarantee you. Now, where he's going to die is not necessarily the same in the liver. The liver is going to probably get infected, but if you shoot him in the guts, then what's going to happen is they're going to eventually develop septic shock.
Yep.
Basically, the bile in the stomach leaks into the body. When it leaks into the body, they can't recover.
Yeah.
We can recover. We can get a gunshot wound to the gut, and you can go to the hospital.
They have to
they sew you up.
Surgery and everything.
Yes.
There's no freaking deer surgery.
But that's
Deer at the ER center.
Oh, man, I got another broadhead in my guts, man. Get me going.
I'm getting really sick of these rages, I'll tell you what.
I've come 12 miles for this. Can you sew me up? And they can't, so they're going to die. But that's the argument that you'll hear with people.
Oh, this is so
I
hard to stitch with these hooks.
So we can close up the liver part for what I've seen. Oh, I thought that was about to be rain. I was very happy. Anyways, sorry, that totally distracted me. There's a loud noise here. So from what I've seen from tracking, and I've never shot a deer in the liver, but I've tracked a lot of deer that have been hit in the liver. If you're questioning, like what Warren said was a great example of like if you have a decent amount or if you're following it for a little bit versus if you can see it for a long ways. If you walk up and you're like, oh, this is like what they're talking about, there's a lot of blood, back out. Because if you just think there's a lot of blood and it's unnatural amount of blood, it's still probably, it's got to be a freaking significant, like ungodly. That does not look right. It doesn't look like it. You have to be questioning yourself that they even made it 40 yards because it looks like they dumped all their blood out, I would say. So unless you're that confident of it, don't try pushing in on them. But there is a chance that if you do hit one properly right there, you're going to have a juice situation where they could die within 100, 150 yards.
I would say a lot of times, too, unless you're in a scenario where we were as far as you can't see them, if you hit them there with 150 yards or so, they're probably going to tip. Yeah. I'll be impressed if most of them make it past that because Juice was booking.
Yep.
Yeah, he was flying, and he was. I think I want to say that we ranged it, and he was like 120 yards from the stand to where he died.
Yep. Okay, let's take. I'm curious to hear this one. So, Easton does way more of it than I do now, but I used to also do some of the tracking stuff with dogs and helping people, and I still will occasionally. But one thing we've started hearing a lot is that all these deer are getting hit in one lung and surviving. And so my question to you two is, one, do you believe that that's the case or that that's possible? Two, if you do believe it's possible, at what rate? Meaning, out of every 10 deer that are shot and hit one lung, that one of them is making it, so 10%, or that it's 0.001?
I'd say it's less than 1.
I'm going to say it's very small. I mean, but I think prior to gentlemen that sent what?
I'm just thinking because I have a sheet this year that I'm going to try to send in. If anybody's hearing this and maybe you guys do tracking or something too, let me know or send us a message because I'm going to send this to all the Iowa blood trackers with a questionnaire and it's just going to be like 5 or 10 questions, if that, just the basic info that every track I'm going to do this year.
They're going to
instead
answer those
of
questions.
like I write down all my tracks for Christo, but I don't always remember every bit of it. So I'm going to, every time we go do a track, they're going to have to answer the type of broadhead they shot, how heavy their arrow was, where they thought they hit, all of this. So if you guys want to get info on it too, like as I get as much as I can on that sheet, these kinds of conversations are going to be amazingly statistically backed up. So, and the more people I could get that sheet out to in other states too would be phenomenal, because then you guys could turn them back into us or send us like what you had for the season kind of thing.
Well, the other thing, I'm going to make a plug for us real quick as far as you guys. So I think like our podcast, I'm going to start calling them the Army. There's a raised Army because you guys are the shit. Anyways, we just uploaded what we call the Vital Zone onto our YouTube, which is basically this. It's a 3D graphic with a skeletal system, with the Vital Zone, with everything that you would need to be able to see all of this.
It's to scale.
Yeah, it's just so. But go on there and comment on that video what you saw for shots, because what I'd like to do is start creating that as a forum for a whole bunch of people that because everybody goes and looks for that when they hit something. Now there's a really good one, and if we all start posting our comments in there of what we had, then we can hopefully help people. Oh, this was my hit. Well, this is what I had. This was my hit, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's going to take a lot of information from a lot of people to help narrow that down.
Yep. Okay,
so
sorry.
That's okay. So to answer Warren's question, though, if you'd asked me 4 years ago, I would have told you that I don't believe a one lung hit can live. It's going to kill them eventually. However, I have someone that sent me photos, and it, for whatever reason, and I know him well, he made a shot on a doe, did not find that doe, couldn't find her. Next year he goes back, he ends up killing a doe, still got his broadhead and part of his arrow lodged inside the deer. And he recognized that there was a wound on it, so he was really careful in opening it up and sent me pictures. One lung is completely collapsed and the doe is alive. She lived for a solid year. Now, I don't know if part of the reason that she was able to survive was because the arrow was still in there and was keeping some air from getting in. I don't know. I'm not a vet. I guess I can't speak to that. But my point is that's exclusive, or that's conclusive evidence that they can live.
Possible.
They can live with one lung hit.
That's the only reason I give it a chance, because I've seen it now where people have sent us stuff or like that they have lived. But the reason I'm saying that number is so low is because if you go off of the tracking, the amount of people that have told me they've single lunged something, and even if we do find it, they didn't even hit a lung. Like I'm not gonna take my statistics of they'll definitely live with a single lung because a guy said he hit them in one lung. Well, not doing it anymore, because I've had way too many people tell me where they're hitting, and they're not even within like 6 to 8 inches, if even a foot of where they're actually hitting.
I would say that the accuracy, if we had to take a guess of what people, and it's no offense to them at all, because especially if you don't have it on video,
it's
super
blackout
hard
for a lot of people.
Right. I'll bet it's less than 15% is accurate to what they like. It's very, very low. And then I also think, I guess they can take offense to it if they want to. I really don't care. Some of these trackers are saying that this is what happened, and that's what happened on these deer they never recovered. And I don't think they have a clue either, because after we know the information of, well, 1, 15% of them are only accurate on what they had, and then 2, you can't tell me, you can run a lot of tracks and you can get a good idea, but the amount of one lung survivals all of a sudden is astronomical. And I think that if you really think about it, it's hard. It's going to be hard to hit one lung and not get the other one. It's going to be difficult because you have to be at a super severe angle in order to be able to
I've
do
had
that.
people tell me that they single lunged it broadside, and that just doesn't add up in my head. I don't even understand.
Well,
It's
plus if you were
possible,
quartered
but it
away,
would
How?
be very difficult.
How?
Well,
Yeah,
if
broadside.
you're if you're high in a tree and the deer is broadside,
Yeah, maybe,
you
but
go
I'm
in and
talking
out
like,
the same lung.
I had a muzzleloader one, and they're
yeah,
sitting in a
but
blind.
let's think about that for a minute. Let's just say perfectly broadside, and to get one lung, how high above that deer you have to be?
Yeah,
you got to shoot it like dragon.
Or bullwinkle is what I was thinking.
I was thinking dragon, because didn't you probably got closer to hitting his offside lung than you did his front, right?
Well, he got shot him at 25.
Yeah, but he was steep.
Yeah,
Steep.
he was downhill. Bullwinkle was the only one I think I've ever even had where I was like, I don't think I could hit both lungs right now if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And he was literally straight below
under
me
you.
because I mean you're talking even 4 yards out.
Gives you
If
an
you're going to go
angle.
through the top lung, you're going to hit the bottom of the other lung.
The
Yeah,
white
but-
10's a perfect example there, or your Kansas buck that comes running in. Both of those are
Quartered
right under
away
you.
and steep could be a little different, but just the number, the amount of people, and is what I think it is they're hitting them low, like we've talked about before. They're hitting them right below the heart here, and they saw their fletchings kick up, and then the tracker sees blood for 150 yards or whatever, and there's some light-colored blood in it or whatever, and maybe a bubble or two, and it's one lung, which, no, you didn't hit anything. And when they kill these deer, because we've seen it a whole bunch of times now later on, it's a cut right below everything. They just cut them
Yeah,
there.
I
and
had
it
one
bleeds for
year
a
where I
while.
probably had 4 or 5 of them running around, and they were untouched because the first one we thought we smoked, and then me and Dad walk over to it. It was broadside, 20 yards, came to antlers, and shot it. We both thought it was – Dad thought it was pretty low. I thought it was great. I was like 13 or 14, and we tracked the deer 200 yards, and he is bedded down with a doe, chasing a doe all around, no issues whatsoever. And then I did it 3 more times, which is awful. But, I mean, all of them were in the exact same spot. I was shooting everything way too low.
And I think that was Dad's fault.
Well, they look
be
great.
honest.
The shot will look great, but at the same time, if you're not paying attention, and because some of the blood could be tricky, a lot of times you're going to be at just muscle, nothing.
And I
vital
think
there.
I think
should
though,
clarify why you think it's my fault. I know where you're going, and I'll take some
It-
blame with that.
it was Dad's fault because Dad had pounded it in his head so much
Aim low.
that you got to aim low, you got to aim low, you got to aim low. That Easton was still developing as a hunter, and so he wasn't taking those into scenario when
They
the
had
deer
no
was
clue.
calm
They had no
at
clue
16
we were
yards.
there, and they
Yes.
didn't have a chance to move, or you don't need to aim that low.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a few. I think we should
That's a
do
lot
some.
of beginner not paying attention though too. So
I think we should do some odd ones that you may not ever expect. How long do you think they can live on a clipped heart shot?
I don't know what the definition
Or,
of clipped is, but they're gonna
like,
they're
I'm
gonna die,
talking,
like within
Let's say a fixed blade, one blade,
barely goes into it.
just clips the heart.
I don't know. I still think he's gonna be dead within an hour at a max.
Negative. And I know which one you're going to but
How the
10
heck could they
10,
have
12
a hole in
hours.
a heart?
10, 12 hours, but his heart was clipped.
A hole in the heart.
It wasn't a hole.
It was a
It
slice.
like one blade, just clipped the bottom of the heart, very bottom.
Who is this?
Mom.
Yeah, what deer?
So the deer, I don't know how to explain. It's mounted in there on the wall.
The one with the funky base.
No, the narrow one that didn't grow
Oh,
from
yeah.
one year to the next. And
Yeah.
so we walked up on him, and he was laying flat out. Actually, my cameraman probably saved my life because he was laying flat on his side, like, oh, there he is.
And this was probably 6, 7 hours later.
We had left him for quite a while because you guys watched him.
I
He
watched-
ran 100 yards and laid down
Yep.
and didn't die, and eventually walked off. And so you guys weren't positive where it was shot. Then we brought the footage home, looked at it. All of us were like, he's going to die right there. If he went and laid down, that deer has been hit in somewhere. So, but we couldn't find blood. Remember, we got there and it was like, there is
How are you
none.
guaranteeing he's gonna die?
Because if you see the footage, you could tell that she did go into the cavity. And so I knew the deer was going to die, but I didn't know when. However, I thought we were going to walk over and just find blood and follow it. And we didn't. So we got Dan, put Dan on it, and Dan was on the deer. Like, okay. And so Dan walks, we don't go another
Then we
100
did
yards.
find blood, didn't we?
Then we did, yes.
Yeah,
But
because then
he
it was
picked
super
it,
consistent.
Yeah, he picked it back up.
Yep.
And then we get over there, and the deer is laying there. And I'm like, well, that was stupid. We only went like 100 yards from where you guys last saw him. And so anyhow, I give the cameraman, Dan, to hold him back just because I want him. And then I saw the deer blink. And I was like, oh, no, he's alive, but it's not the first time I've had to put a deer down. I didn't have anything with me, though. I was running Dan. So what I did have was Mom's arrow. I found the arrow on the track. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to end up punching this.
Skip that part.
Okay, well, I didn't, because I get over there and he stands up and takes off running. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And so anyhow, we now decide we better leave him. We know Dan can find him again. And he was definitely not doing well. So we left him another, I think it was 4 or 5 hours before we.
And the only reason we backed is because it was supposed to rain.
It was supposed to pour down rain.
Yep.
And so we backed out and waited until we could go. And then when we went again, jumped the deer again with Dan.
But there was consistent blood
But this
again
time
for a few hundred yards,
yes.
like hundreds of yards. And it was just not lots of blood, but there was just blood the entire time.
Yep. But then, so we get to the same point where we ran him back by the truck. Karen had a broken foot. She'd had surgery on her foot, so she's sitting at the truck waiting for us to find her deer. So he goes through the field. We keep going, and then eventually we got off of him again, left him again until now the rain is imminent. But now we're 12 hours into this, and then when we put Dan back on him for the third time, he goes right to him, and he's stone cold dead.
But there was blood the entire time.
But there was blood
so my
the
point
entire
with that
time.
is if you don't have a really good tracking dog or something like that and you end up in this scenario, and then we gutted him very, very carefully.
And it was just a nick in his heart.
Just one blade. But I still think if we had not continually bumped him, he might have been 18 hours.
He could have been if he just laid there.
I'm just wondering how it would clot up.
It wasn't.
I'm saying that because you guys kept moving him, so he's not going to be able to clot up very well. But if he's laying there, how well he could even clot up. Because if you're thinking about a heart, it's expanding and compressing, expanding and compressing. Even if
that's why it's going to kill him.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think it's ever going to clot.
I don't think it would have added any time to him, honestly. Unless maybe the fact that his heart was pumping so much harder that I don't know. That how deep was that cut?
Oh,
I
maybe a half inch.
Not even that. I didn't think about thickness of a blade. About 1/4 of an inch is what I remember.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. To be honest with you, I never would have even. I mean, I don't know what to.
Yeah.
If I see that shot, I'm going to sit there and think that the deer's dead. And if I see him running around, I'd be questioning myself that they're going to be okay.
Well, that's why I think this is that's the thing. That's why I think this is a super awesome podcast, actually, because for these scenarios, when you're thinking, well, what the heck do I do now? You could look at this and say, okay, well, if there's consistent blood, there's a chance I nicked this heart, and so I'm just going to keep following the blood.
Just in my heart. I mean, I know if I've got blood, I'm following, but I just feel as though if I were to, like in that situation, if you go for 20 yards and there's no blood, I'm going to keep going and doing circles trying to find wherever that blood is. But if you were to somehow not find it or pick it up again, I'm probably going to, if I'm looking for a day or two, whatever I'm doing, I'm probably going to end up chalking it up to, I think that I hit him low.
Yeah, it wasn't like that though. Like it was very consistent.
Yeah,
it wasn't a lot, but it was there the whole time.
Good answer, or another good reason as to why you should always
follow up,
significantly
exhaust everything,
check for blood, and make sure that even if you think that you completely missed them, like go thoroughly check your stuff to make sure that you did not leave blood anywhere or something.
Watch their behavior.
I want to bring up one that we weren't thinking about, and now that we're talking about this, I think it's an excellent example.
I bet I just thought of the same one.
It's Montana.
Wait,
no, not the same one.
Oh, I was going to say 1, 2, 3, and you guys say it. Okay.
No, in Montana, you're filming. I believe you were the one filming, and I shot a deer and shot it back. He came into the rattling horns and walked over to the edge of the field, and I shot him, and it was raining, and so water kind of went everywhere.
This one I begged you to shoot?
No, I don't think so.
This the one that ends up in the river?
Yeah.
Oh,
I went back with
that one.
I went back with you.
Yeah, you came with us the next day, but we watched that deer go back out in the field and try breeding does and was chasing does around, and I was positive that I had put an arrow through the center of him, not as far back as Juice, so I felt like it was a gut shot, or it was lower. And so I felt like it was truly just a gut shot deer, but he didn't act as if he was hit. We couldn't, or I was afraid to go out and look for the arrow because they were out in the field. all the deer were. And I was like, okay, I don't want to go run them off. So we snuck out of there without going to the arrow or anything like that. Watched the footage to the best of our knowledge with the footage, because it was dusk and everything. The arrow did impact him. And so we said, we're going to go back tomorrow morning and we're going to try to find this deer. But we didn't really have, we didn't even have a chance to go look for him before he was laying right there.
Yeah.
But there would be an opportunity for someone to be able to go home on a Sunday, Saturday and Sunday of the weekend to hunt, and they shoot that deer in the evening, and like, I must not have hit him where I needed to, because he's out there chasing does around, and I mean, he's just fine. And that deer was not fine. And I found him laying in the middle of the river. He had actually gone to, and that's something that I want people to understand. We don't bank on the old wives' tales that say they're going to water, they're going downhill, they're going to do, but in this particular case, he did go to water. But I think he went to water because of the gut shot. And because I think that was burning, fever starts. And so then he goes and lays down in the water trying to cool himself. And then he was just laying there on that sand barge.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that was just one that I thought of that was just a prime example of you could make the wrong call here, and our call was exhaust everything, go back again. As a matter of fact, it was an excuse for you to miss school the next day.
Oh, yeah. The one I was thinking of is, what about a perfect shot, quote unquote, and everything says perfect shot for 200 yards, and they're not
right
there.
At the house.
Yeah,
your deer.
Yeah. That was a interesting one.
Yep.
Well, I could top that one.
Huh?
You could top that one right now.
How?
Joey's. She went 10
10
times as far.
Well, so is what happened on mine is I shot a deer at 30 yards, and if you're watching this, then I can show you on this on the anatomy deer here. And there's, we all know where that little knuckle is, right up behind the shoulder. And I was shooting a lighted knock, and I hit him.
Be further forward than that.
Well, I think we thought right behind that knuckle, but shot looked absolutely perfect.
Looked like it was a heart shot, 100%.
I'd say, or even heart and lungs. Like, it was pretty much, if you could draw where you want to hit him, it's right where it was.
That's where it entered.
Yep. And so Dad and I got out of the stand and got down to go and get my deer. And blood at first was just everywhere. It was like exactly what you'd expect, and we were going to go and pick this deer up. Well, we follow the blood, and then we get about 100 and some yards into it, and I'm following blood, and Dad's following blood. And so then he yells at me. He's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm on the blood." And he's like, "Well, I'm on the blood." And so the deer, there was a creek. He must have gone up the creek to where I was first, and then he doubled back and he went to where you were. And then it was at that point right there that we started getting a little more nervous.
Yep.
And I don't remember how far we'd gone, maybe 150 yards, not terribly far. And so we decided to keep going a little bit further, and I think we actually bumped him, probably.
We heard a deer blow.
Yep. And so then at that point we backed out. We're like, okay, we need to back out. And I can't. Maybe was it Scott Kreger? Somebody else was over at the house while we're looking at the video, and he's like, "What are you boys doing? Go get that deer." And we're like, "That's what we thought." And I ended up having to work that night, I think.
Oh yeah,
It was the next
sure.
morning too, because
Yeah.
me and Dad and our neighbor.
The
went and
neighbor.
looked.
Yep.
And you guys bumped him again, right?
Twice,
Well,
wasn't it?
yeah. When we left, me and you, I think bumped him twice, because we thought we heard something, but we weren't sure, and we had good blood still, so we kept following. Not great blood, but it was decent blood. And so we went like another 100 yards, and then we heard the deer blow, and then he ran off. Then we went back. You couldn't go. That you're like, "I need to go look for my deer." I said, "You're gonna have to let us do it, because if you got to go to work, we cannot go back today."
You were in good hands. We had me before we had Dan.
So what we did
At that
was,
point, I decided I was done working for other people.
so we waited on the neighbor to get off work. And so at 5 o'clock, you went to work. He got off work. Me, Easton, and him went, and we followed blood. I mean,
We also watched a very, very large deer go running
see, and
over a hill.
but I didn't see it.
I did.
And him,
I
and
still have a vivid picture of
yeah,
that
him and the neighbor
deer.
saw the deer get up, and I'm like, man, I don't know, because I didn't see him. We go over there, and there's no blood in the bed. And I'm like, I don't know. And Easton kept saying, well, it was a big deer. And the neighbor said the same. He was like, it was
And
a big
I
deer.
also, that was before I could really recognize deer all that well, and it looked awfully familiar for me to be sitting there like, okay, this like looked like a perfect
Right.
10. He had splits. He's
So we
big.
so we backed out again and said, we'll wait till the next morning when you can go, and we'll go look again. And honestly, we should have found him within 5 minutes, but it was just dumb luck the way that we
Me and you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the way we went up that drainage and came back, we didn't find him till as we were coming back.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I was zoned out, like getting into the depressed hunter mode, you know, when I almost kicked him.
Yeah, almost stepped on him.
Because it was
like Mitch.
right back. But I got up in a stand right there, too, though. It was within 30 yards of him and couldn't see him.
Yep.
So, and what happened on that one is I clipped that knuckle. So it hit him really good, but I clipped the knuckle, and it sent that arrow straight back. And so I think it probably got one lung.
Yep.
And came out and went through guts and everything else. And so then that deer made it a pretty long ways. He didn't actually end up going that far, but his travel pattern to get there was a long ways. So
he probably went, it was over 500 yards, I bet you, if we had tracked the track.
mm-hmm.
You know, maybe a half a mile.
Yeah.
You know, he had gone a long ways. So that would be one of those instances where, and again, I find, and maybe you guys being younger, I think it still happened back when, but I just notice more and more often now my eyes aren't as good. Even with the lighted nocks, I'll see him hit a target. And then when I walk up to pull my arrows out of the target, they're in the target in a different spot. Whether that be
it's the angle where you're seeing the knock versus where it's going.
Absolutely. So sometimes I think what we see visually is not what's happening. You know.
I know what he's going at.
Well, I'm just saying that. But when you're talking about your deer this past year, I mean, what you saw, what Warren or Easton shot his deer this year off the ground, and I'm filming, and when that arrow hit, it was perfect as far as height, forward, but Easton
First deer I ever shot out of a blind too.
Right, and but
actually off the ground at all.
Oh yeah,
never shot a deer off the ground.
Well, your instant instant remark was it didn't go in. It just hanging there, and rightfully so. When the deer turns to run off, it's a flopping arrow. It's sticking out.
And a lighted knock, so I mean you could see you clearly.
But I felt like it had to have gone in farther with the penetration that the poundage and everything that you're pulling, the kinetic energy, the penetration you get. It would go farther than through a shoulder or whatever. And what had happened is it had gone through and hit the shoulder on the other side and bounced back. And that is something that happens often. I do think that happens a lot, and people don't realize. They think they don't get the penetration.
Think that it's stuck in the shoulder.
It's stuck in the shoulder, you know.
Because that's what I thought. I mean, I've never had that happen. I've clipped some shoulders and stuff like that before, but I've never had one where it looked like it flat out just hit a wall and stopped. And that arrow was traveling so fast that by the time it had already gone in, was already out, I couldn't even comprehend that.
Right.
And it looked... And granted, what we saw was the full length of the arrow, pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
Until we figured out, once I found the other chunk of the arrow, that it had snapped off, and we had, 14 inches or something?
Yeah, you had plenty of penetration. Enough. The average whitetail is only about 12 inches wide.
Yeah.
Even the big Midwest bucks, they're 12 to 14 inches wide, you know, and until you start measuring that stuff and realizing that you don't need 18 inches of penetration.
What would you say you need penetration-wise for one lung?
3 inches.
I'd say 3 to 4.
Okay.
3 inches is going to pierce it, though.
I definitely think you're getting into
Unless
a lung
it's
in 3
deflated.
inches.
I think 3 inches. I think you're in the middle of that lung.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, and so then to hit the second lung, you'd need
5, probably
5 to 6.
5 inches. So most of the time, I think that you can, if you can look at your arrow and you have 7 inches of penetration on a whitetail,
golden pony boy.
You're good.
You
as long as you hit where you're supposed to. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like, you got enough penetration. It's nowhere near as much as people think, you know? So if you need, but I guess you're better off just shooting an 800 grain arrow at 190 feet per second.
What, you mean throwing a log with a blunt tip at the end of it?
Yeah, you just better make sure your yardage is freaking perfect. And once you get past 24,
the biggest thing,
I got a dial.
the biggest thing that we can do for ourselves is the moment that you shoot something is try to freaking burn that into your head.
Do not forget.
Do not forget.
Not try to be biased.
You know, and don't tell yourself it's better than what it is. You know, be honest with yourself. It's going to help you. I mean, you got to be able to say, I think I shot low, or I think I shot back or forward, or whatever it is, or I felt like it was perfect, but the arrow did this, or it looked like this.
I do think that just for the people, I mean, I know it's kind of a fad now, or like a common thing of everybody wants to film each other, themselves hunting. And I'm not saying that in a negative light. I'm just saying it's become very popular. Even if you're hunting alone and you don't care to have footage or to film anything, it could possibly be, not possibly, it'd be very beneficial if you just threw a simple Tacticam on, like your stabilizer or something like that, just something where it's not, you're not thinking about anything extra. All you're doing is clicking a button, and all it's doing is you're just banking on it. It gets the shot. That way that you at least have a second version of, you can go back and look at where your shot was. You don't have to have somebody sitting with you. You don't have to be filming with a whole camera. It's not going to break the bank, but it's probably going to save you some deer if you make some marginal shots.
No,
So.
cameras are huge. Cameras have helped us recover some deer with it for sure, or recover them more quickly.
Or just makes you more confident. We need to look. We need to look.
Absolutely.
We need to look, you know.
So, well, hopefully, is that all we want to cover today?
I feel like otherwise, I mean,
We're at
there's so
multiple
many that we
parks.
can do. Yeah. But I have a wacky fact.
Oh,
I
Lord.
love it.
And this may not be that wacky, and some of our audience can probably confirm this. Moonshiners used cow shoes to disguise their footprints during Prohibition.
That's a legitimate thing. They put them on their feet so it didn't look like they had foot tracks.
I think we should be doing that. This is a tip for all you guys that are on public. You know, especially if you live out west, you need to put grizzly shoes on or something.
Yeah.
You
There you
know,
go.
Yeah, it starts
went right through the
scaring
parking
everybody.
lot this morning.
Nobody
you-
would
and
go
then
back.
You
you
got to
could-
thinking about that because of Shane, didn't you? About moonshine.
No, it's just on the list of wild facts.
Me and Shane were just talking about moonshine.
Well, I remember that, but I didn't.
Well, the
look
thing
that up
is, I
'cause of
think
that.
if you wore those shoes onto public land like around here, guys might leave as well, just
Yeah,
because they're like,
cows.
freaking cows have gotten in here and ruined everything.
Next time, I'm gonna look up a recipe for everybody to make some steamer. You know, so you can really
make a
convince
turd.
them. Yeah, there's a cow turd, cow tracks, cow turd. Every dude is leaving your spot. You know, and then
There
you
you
can
go.
go and you wait till they go. If the few guys that are brave enough to go in for the morning, you just wait till they leave. You know, and then you go and rub up against their trucks. You know,
Yeah.
they'll be like,
Push their mirror in.
Maybe if you
Yeah.
really want to get committed, lick lick the side of their truck.
start licking the windshield.
And
What are
then
you doing?
somebody's gonna-
Shh,
and
man,
then
I'm protecting the spot.
Some dude's sleeping in his car, and there you are licking his window. when
That's
he-
the definition of a window licker
Yeah.
right there.
But I will tell you what, there is a whole bunch of hunters out there that are dedicated enough. If they thought it was help, they would be out there licking
yeah.
windows. I
Well,
hope that starts
I'm-
a trend, because
I'm
I'm just going
sure-
to be rolling by public land places,
Good
see guys
Lord.
licking windows.
I can already see that we are going to have some comment next week. You guys ought to do a podcast about licking windows, or there'll be something that there's no way, I don't care what we just discussed in this podcast, it will have to do with this wacky fact that he's brought up today. I guarantee it. That
We
one
need to
is
get you on some rarer, wacky facts.
Why?
Because I think a lot of people are going to know that one.
Well, sorry.
You'll just step up your game next
so
week.
you're saying
That
his
one's-
wacky wasn't so whacked.
No, it needs to be wackier.
Okay, I can do that.
Still has to be
PG-13.
where we can put it out there, but it can be wackier.
Emphasis on the 13.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining for the Raised Hunting Podcast. I do think that today's topic was, if anything, hopefully super helpful. Again, these are our opinions, and our opinions are coming from life, from the situations that we've seen, and we've been fortunate enough to see several hundred between the us shooting them and other people shooting them and stuff like that. So we're not telling you that we're 100% correct, but what we are telling you is what we've seen, and hopefully if you're one of those people out there that hasn't had that many opportunities, we can help you. And if you're someone out there that's just inquisitive and wants to know more, hopefully we can help you too. So
Also,
Maybe if people have a shot placement one that they want, like specific shot placement, to send it in. You have to be really descriptive though, and we can see if we've had that one.
opportunity or had that situation.
I'm scared to say this, but I will say it because we are openly trying to help you guys, or at least trying to get information. You can message us through our website. You can just click the little chat box. You can call us on our website. You can message us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, any of these places that you can contact us. You're not getting an answer from somebody else. You're actually talking to one of us three, typically, unless it's Nick behind the camera. And so you're going to get us. So if you guys are sitting there in the woods, and heck, we might be hunting too, but if we're sitting in a stand and we get a notification that we see, we'll answer as quick as we can to try to help you guys. So
if there's more than 4 spelling errors in it, then it was Nick.
Yes. So if you can't understand what they're talking about or read the words that they're trying to depict, it was our camera guy, and ask for one of the holders.
If it says debacle, then it wasn't Warren. All right, guys, we're out of here. Thanks for joining us on the Raised Hunting Podcast. We appreciate you.